Hello everyone, Shannon here, back with some more Payroll Protection Program information, PPP information. So I just wanted to start this and let you know that I'm recording this on May 28th. So if there is guidance that comes out after today, May 28th, it will not be reflected in this video. And that's just really important to note because we're getting lots of guidance on a weekly basis pretty much right now. We've also at this point seen the forgiveness application. So we have a little bit more understanding of what that's going to look like. And that's why I put together this Payroll Protection Program loan tracker that I'm going to share with you as a Google Doc. So you can make a copy of it. That's what the sharing permissions are going to be. You won't be able to use this. You have to make a copy, save it to your Google Drive, and then use it. And I also wanted to create a video to just show you a little bit how to use it. As we've seen the application, it's become very clear that you need to be tracking what you're using the money for, as we've said all along. And we definitely still recommend having that separate bank account. And that is one way that you can track it. It's going to make filling out this spreadsheet a little bit easier. But when you go to fill out the loan forgiveness application, you're going to want to have something that sums up all of your separate expenses. Because remember, you're allowed to use this for payroll, rent or lease payments, utility payments, and then interest expense. You have to delineate each one of those on the application. So I'm just going to jump in and show you how to use this, and other things will come up and we'll talk about those as we go. So the very first thing, you're going to want to go to the file menu and make a copy and then save it. Once you do that, you're going to want to fill in here in the blue box how much you received for your PPP funding. So I'm going to use $30,000 for the example. You'll see when I do that over here on the right, the balance is $30,000 as well. So there's lots of formulas in this spreadsheet. You're only going to want to fill in numbers in this white boxes, and that will allow all the formulas to work. The next thing you're going to want to do is fill in where it says 1 right here. I want you to actually put dates in here. So here's a little bit of information on the dates now that we've seen the forgiveness application. They also created what they called an alternative covered payroll period. We used to think that you had 56 days or 8 weeks from the day that the funds were deposited in order to use them for them to be forgivable. When the application came out, the forgiveness application, it had this alternative covered payroll period on it. And what it says is if you pay your people biweekly or more frequently, which would usually be weekly or biweekly, you can use this alternative period, which means you can start your forgiveness period, your 8 weeks, on the first day of the pay period after you received your funds. So let's look at a calendar, and let's say that I received my funds on May 1st. My next pay date is actually May 8th, but that's for the period worked the last 2 weeks of April. So my next pay period starts on May 4th. I can use May 4th as my start date instead of May 1st. So it only gives me 3 days, but it means at the end, I probably will get to include another payroll. And again, it's just up until your PPP amount that you received. So you may go over that in that payroll period, in those payroll periods. It's just good to have the flexibility. And the other thing that it allows, and we know now from the application, is that these are expenses that are either incurred or paid. Before we had this guidance, it said incurred and paid. And as accountants, there was a little bit of unease around that, because if you pay your phone bill, let's say on May 4th, that was actually all incurred in April. And so we were not sure if that was going to be forgivable. Now that they've changed it to say incurred or paid, we're confident that that will be forgivable. So the next thing you want to do is pick your dates. And I will say this is probably something you should get some individualized advice on, although maybe what I gave you was just enough. But this is also a good point to put in the disclaimer that I always say when I talk about taxes. I'm not a CPA, I'm not an attorney, so this can't be tax or legal advice. Please consult your tax preparer, your tax accountant for individualized questions. So let's pick the date here. Like I just said, I got my funds. I'm just going to say I got my funds on May 1st. I'm going to use May 4th. I want to put the from and to dates in that box where it says 1. So I'm going to put May 4th to May 10th. That is my 1 week period that I'm using here. So May 4th to May 10th. And then on the next line down, I'm going to put May 5th because that's when I pay my rent. It's due on the 5th of every month. Then I'm going to come across to the rent column and I'm going to put $4,000 because that's my rent amount. And then I just said my first payroll after May 4th is going to be on May 8th. So on May 8th, I'm going to put payroll. And here, I'm going to say I paid myself and my team $2,835. That is the gross payroll amount, okay? It is not your total cost because the employer's share of FICA, your Social Security and Medicare, is not forgivable. So you only want to include the gross amount. If you pay state unemployment, you could also add that in here. So that is forgivable. So you could just do that as a formula here. You could put a plus sign at the beginning, a plus sign at the end, and add in $70. And that's included in your forgiveness now. And you can see over here in the right-hand column, it reduced the $30,000 by the $4,000 to say you have $26,000 left in your PPP funds. And now it's reduced it by the $2,905. So when you're entering information, you want to make sure you're entering them only in these first 4 white boxes and not overwriting any formulas. Let's say on the 8th, you also make a retirement contribution. That is also forgivable and it's a payroll expense. So we'll say that's $500. And on May 8th, you also make a health insurance contribution. We'll say that's $1,500. If you pay any utilities, that can go here. Business interest expense, this is, the application now says real or personal property. So if you have personal property, that would be cars, equipment, things like that, that you're paying, making payments on and you're paying interest, those are also forgivable. So you're just going to delineate every expense that you pay with PPP funds that you want to be forgiven, every line, and put it in the right column over here. And then if you scroll down, the end of week 1, you have $21,095 left. And you can see here how much of the money you've used for all of these different types of expenses that are forgivable. So you use 16% for payroll and 13% for rent. So you're pretty close on rent. You know, you probably can't make another entire rent payment because that would put you at 26%, but you can pay a portion of it depending on how many utilities and interest that you pay. So this then carries over, the 21,000 becomes the amount for week 2 that you have, and so forth. The thing that I would fill out first is your weeks. So you're going to put 5/11 to 5/17, I believe is the next date, and so forth, because that will tell you when you get down here to the bottom, you have week 8, you will know what the last day is that you have to pay your expenses on for them to be forgivable. And then down here at the very bottom, these are the numbers you really need to be paying attention to. It's all going to sum up for you. So let's go ahead and add some data into week 2. Let's say we make a utility payment. So utilities are telephone, internet, electricity, gas, and even transportation. So that could be included. So utility, let's say we pay $100 there. And let's say we make, I don't know, we probably wouldn't make another retirement contribution, but I'm going to put it in here just because I want you to see that we should have $4,955 down here at the very bottom. If we scroll down, we do, and it's summing everything up. So I would keep checking the very bottom to see what your total amount is for the ratio, because remember, you need to spend at least 75% of your PPP funds on payroll for them to be forgiven, no more than 25 on these other expenses. So you will need to add these 3 together in order to figure out what the percentage is that's not payroll. But rent's going to be your biggest one, I believe. So I hope that helps. That's the PPP loan tracker that I've put together. And if you have questions, definitely comment in the comments below, and we'll be checking back to answer them.